I believe that traditional ideas about life after death are outdated. The other world is not a fantastic vision. Here, souls do not soar in the clouds, do not play the harp. This is a place with seas and landscapes, cities and houses, reminiscent of our world, says Professor of Religious Studies Stafford Batty, who is the author of several books about life after death. In one of his works, Discovering Life Beyond, Stafford Batty analyzed the most reliable and evidence-based communications with inhabitants of the other world, received by people who discovered the ability of automatic writing. According to Batty, the picture of existence that emerged as a result of these communications inspires, fills with optimism and gives confidence in the future. Imagine that you are an unbeliever. You do not go to church, do not say a daily prayer, do not believe in the afterlife of the soul. What will happen to you if it turns out that this life does exist? Will you go to the place that believers call hell? Now imagine that you are that same believer who goes to church and prays every day. Does this mean that such a person will go to heaven after death? You will be surprised to learn that there are answers to all these questions that are confirmed by research. And these answers often do not coincide with what we have been taught, says University of California professor Stafford Batty, who studies life after death. Having analyzed messages from different individuals from the afterlife, Stafford Batty found that most of these messages describe a completely different picture of life after death than the one we know from earthly religions. According to the professor, these messages indicate that our ideas about heaven and hell are too simplified and sometimes mislead a person. Stafford Batty notes that all major earthly religions contain descriptions of a heavenly judgment. Every soul must appear before him after the end of earthly life. And what do the departed say about this? Will the soul be able to avoid punishment for bad deeds, and will those souls who have done nothing bad receive a reward? Stafford Batty answers all these questions with messages from departed souls. Thus, after the death on the Titanic, the publicist William Stead left a message alive that in the afterlife the soul passes judgment on itself. Looking through the chronicle of its earthly deeds, it feels remorse or happiness depending on what has been done. William Stead reports, the whole point of the heavenly court is that the soul can see itself as it really is. This is a court that is carried out by God, but through our higher I. No one in the face of truth will be such a harsh judge as a person for himself. For many, this court becomes a difficult test. And here is what John Edmondson, who in his earthly life held the position of judge in New York, said about the heavenly court through a communicator. Edmondson said that after his death he was shown all the actions of his life. At first he saw those pictures in which he had wrongly judged other people, spoken harshly or thought badly of someone. When I saw all my mistakes, it seemed to me that my whole life consisted only of them. Despair visited me, because I thought that after this I would be severely punished. But then I saw those situations in my life when I showed mercy to someone, helped in difficult times, gave alms. I saw those people whom I had pardoned on earth, following my internal laws of justice. It seemed that these actions illuminated my path more than other good deeds, reported John Edmondson. After his death, Canadian professor Arthur Matheson reported that all our actions in the afterlife will have consequences. The soul is punished according to the law of correspondence, and there can be no mistakes here. According to Arthur Matheson, the departed will have to look back on their earthly life. They will have to find out what other people thought of their actions. Often these revelations cause the soul difficult experiences. However, the given messages still contain little specificity. Stafford Batty also gives descriptions of how the law of retribution for its earthly actions affects the soul in one case or another. One of them will be discussed below. Based on messages coming from the afterlife fate of the soul is determined by our actions, especially those that become part of our habit. It is on this that it depends where the soul will go when it leaves the body. According to Stafford Batty, the most detailed story about how the law of retribution works in another world is the story of an American, Mary Norton, who died at the end of the 19th century. This story was transmitted through Robert Lees. In her earthly life, Mary was the only child in the family. Being rich, her father fulfilled all of Mary's wishes. Therefore, the girl grew up with the idea that everything she wanted should be fulfilled. Mary's wishes often became the cause of suffering for those around her. At the same time, her parents and she considered themselves religious people. The head of this family never spared money for the church and tried to attend services. Mary had almost no friends. Her father taught her to be friends only with those who were equal to her in social status. And few matched him. Mary chose her peer Sadie as a friend. The girls' fathers were competitors, but this did not interfere with their friendship. When Sadie and Mary turned 18, they became enviable brides. All the decent guys in the area courted them. Sadie and Mary were spoiled by attention and did not look at anyone seriously. The friends came up with an entertainment for themselves. Sadie and Mary competed to break up as many couples in love as possible. When the young man fell in love with Mary or Sadie, the girls lost interest in him. One day, a new young man appeared in their circle. His name was Charlie. Many girls liked him. Sadie and Mary considered it their duty to draw the attention of this young man to themselves. Soon Charlie fell in love with Mary. He proposed to her. But Mary only laughed at him. The girl thought that after this, the unfortunate Charlie would haunt her. However, the days passed, but the young man did not appear. And Mary soon learned that Charlie proposed to her friend Sadie, and she gave her consent. When I found out about this, my mind was clouded. I was so furious that I was shaking. Then everything darkened before my eyes, and I lost consciousness, Mary reported. When Mary came to her senses, she decided to take revenge on her friend or die. Sadie and Charlie soon left the city. Mary was able to find out where the newlyweds went. Now Mary was preoccupied with thoughts only about how to arrange her meeting with Charlie. Their meeting took place 5 years after the incident. During this meeting, Charlie looked a little older. He was talking to some stranger. Watching them, Mary soon realized that Charlie was in love with this woman. Upon learning this, Mary was overcome with such rage that she wanted to cling to her rival, but she could not do anything. Anger and jealousy caused her indescribable pain. The suffering was such that, according to Mary, she would have preferred to remain in that freezing emptiness than to see how happy Charlie was. This case clearly shows us that after death, suffering is not caused to a person by God or the devil. And this means that there is no last judgment that we are told about. Posthumous suffering naturally follows from the character of the soul. Many souls do not repent for their sins at all, but wander in the dark zone, which is close to the earth's surface. These souls experienced the same feelings as in earthly life. They suffer until they enter the path of their correction, explains Stafford Batty. Summing up, the professor notes that whatever position we occupy in earthly life, it will not matter after our death. In the other world, only our spiritual value is important. Only our actions speak for us or against us there. And we get only what we deserve.